House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has appointed another Republican to the House Select Committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger says that he has accepted a spot on the panel. This comes as the committee gears up to hold its first hearing tomorrow. Zak Hudak is following the latest developments from Washington for us. Zach, so tomorrow the House committee investigating the January 6th attack is holding its first hearing. Who will be testifying?
Emery, we're going to have 4 officers, 2 of them from the Capitol Police and 2 from the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. here, testifying about their experience that day and about what they saw. It's something that Jamie Raskin, one of the members sitting on the committee, said the other day. It was important that they showed that it starts with that. That is sort of the jumping off point, these people who were really more affected than anyone else by this. One of the officers, Harry Dunn, a Capitol Police officer, previously said that he was on that day called the N-word upwards of 30 times. And another, Daniel Hodges, who's a Metropolitan Police officer, is the man who's in that video that I think a lot of us have seen many times now, where he is being crushed in the doorway by rioters and screaming out for help. So while this carries sort of a symbolic effect of just regrounding this investigation and putting the people most affected at the forefront, I think there's also a strategic effect, which is that as Republicans work to fight the narrative about how serious this day was and the role that some of them may have had in riling up this crowd, it makes it a little bit more difficult to fight the narrative and also to attack this first hearing when they're hearing from the people who literally protected them and their colleagues that day.
Yeah, so true. So how are other Republicans, though, reacting to the fact that we now have a second Republican on the panel? Kinzinger said that he is accepting the appointment. What are we hearing from other Republicans?
They're reacting as though just yet another Democrat has been added to the panel. Adam Kinzinger, for pretty much the entirety of 2020, since that day, since January 6th, has sort of been an outcast within the GOP there. He does not have a lot of friends on his side of the aisle. You can look in the chamber, and most of the time you see, if anything, it's he and Liz Cheney sitting together. They are really kind of the lame ducks in the party. So as far as any of the Republican members are concerned, this is, if anything, more partisan than it was before. They view Adam Kinzinger largely as someone who has no intention to help the Republican Party, and in fact, intention to hurt it. And he's been so vocal on that day that it is not settled tempers. If anything, it has outraged people more. I think Kevin McCarthy yesterday reiterated that he sees it as an entire sham investigation, and he will the GOP will be doing their own investigation, which is essentially a counter-messaging campaign.
Indeed. Well, I'm sure Nancy Pelosi would remind them that there are still places available on the panel. I mean, just to remind everyone, last week that she rejected 2 of the Republican appointees that were chosen by the Republican Party, and so they pulled all of the Republicans from the panel. So let's talk about a few other things now that I have you here, though. The ongoing infrastructure negotiations. There are, I guess, 2 sort of bills hanging out there. One is a bipartisan bill that was hammered out by a bipartisan group of senators. The other one is essentially a Democratic bill focused on the human infrastructure and most likely to be passed through a reconciliation process. But we've been hearing a lot of talk, very little action. What's going on?
Well, the clock is ticking. Both chambers are scheduled to go home at the end of the week, but it seems less and less likely that that'll happen. In terms of the bipartisan deal, the latest we know is that the big holdup currently is figuring out transit funding, and debate continues on that. I believe a new offer was made from the group of 10 bipartisan senators trying to work that out. The Democrats in that group last night sent a new proposal, so we may be hearing news at some point this morning or later this afternoon. But beyond that, The reconciliation bill, the sort of Democrat bill as you described it, that is imperative to get passed, to get any of this passed. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, said yesterday she will not bring either bill to the House floor unless they have both passed the Senate. So I think it's important to keep in mind that these really are joint bills, and it's sort of a funky way that Congress is going about it, because the reconciliation bill only needs 51 votes, whereas the bipartisan bill needs 60 in the Senate. So it's easier to get through the Senate, but I think it's important to remember that neither of them will reach the floor in the House unless both of them do, in fact, get through the Senate.
All right, Zach, thank you so much. So we want to remind you that you can stream live coverage of the first House Select Committee hearing on the January 6th attack tomorrow right here on CBSN. It's going to start at 9 a.m., and we're going to bring you a preview of the hearing before it gets underway.